In-depth look at some of the issues facing the Iraqi economy, I'm joined by analyst Joel Wing. He's also a blogger for Musings on Iraq. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how you doing?
So we have these double shocks to Iraq's economy. You have ISIL and you have the falling oil prices, which are the main source of government funding. Which would you say is more devastating to the economy?
I think the fall in oil prices is definitely the biggest impact. Like you said, Iraq is one of the most oil-dependent countries in the world, and it's basically selling its oil now for roughly half of what it was selling over the last 3 years. Also, last year it did not pass a budget because of political disputes, and the former Prime Minister, Noor al-Maliki, spent most of the country's savings. So now it's basically going month to month, basically living off of its oil revenue. So I think that's a really big impact. Although the insurgency obviously has an impact as well. Businesses not wanting to invest and do business there. But I think the drop in oil prices is definitely the biggest impact.
Now, in an effort to stabilize the economy, the government has made some budget cuts and has also raised taxes. But what would you say is the most effective strategy to keep the government afloat?
Yeah, taxes really hardly exist in Iraq. Most people do not pay them, even if they have them. It's really an oil-dependent country. So it's been cutting its budget, but even this year's budget is probably too much than it can actually earn. So it's what's on paper is not what's actually going to be spent. So it's going to face a big deficit no matter what it does right now.
Now, one of the cuts it made was to defense spending, and there's been reports that some Kurdish fighters have gone months without being paid. What's going to be the tipping point for the government in Baghdad to provide the funding?
As part of the budget deal that Baghdad cut with the Kurdistan regional government, they're actually supposed to provide funds for the Peshmerga, which is the first time this has happened since 2003, before the Kurdistan regional government was responsible for paying their fighters. And I think since the new year started, Baghdad has sent at least one payment for the Peshmerga to be paid. So hopefully that'll continue in the continuing months.
Now, turning to the issue of refugees, by some estimates, more than 3.5 million Iraqis have been displaced, many of them just in the last year. Iraq's deputy prime minister says the country needs around $5 billion to address those needs. How is Iraq going to deal with its growing refugee crisis?
It's a really bad situation for the displaced in Iraq. You've got the new wave, and there's already been people displaced from the last civil war that did not return home. And it's really being a bad situation. They have not been able to raise the funds for it. The international community, the United Nations, NGOs have been working with displaced, didn't have the money before the Mosul crisis, and now that the situation's gotten worse, they're putting out all kinds of calls for funding, and I'm not sure they've got it yet. The Baghdad government also has a program to help out the displaced people. If you register with the government, if you lost your home, you're supposed to receive a monthly payment, but there's been all kinds of problems with that for years and years, even before Mosul. Corruption is the main problem. Most of the Iraqi newspapers talk about how the ministry in charge of the displaced is not distributing funds. Government workers are stealing the money. There's also a committee set up by one of the deputy premiers that's also supposed to deal with the displaced, and they've been charged with corruption as well. So they don't have the money, and the organizations that are supposed to take care of it on the government side are not doing their job.
Now, moving on to the IMF, it says it's encouraged by signs of progress towards a permanent deal between Baghdad and Kurdistan on its oil exports. How optimistic are you that this could help relations between the two?
I think the two sides, Baghdad and the Kurdistan regional government, right now they really need each other because of the drop in oil prices and the threat faced by ISIS. So I think they're going to actually pull through and make this deal work. That doesn't mean there won't be complaints about it in the future and talk about pulling out of it, but it's going forward, so I'm encouraged that it's going to stick.
Is there anything else that needs to happen in order for Baghdad and Kurdistan to try and mend those relations?
They probably need better military cooperation, more talk and discussion between the two sides. The last prime minister, Noor al-Maliki, really went after the Kurds on a number of issues over oil and other things, and so relations really fell apart. But I think the new premier body is really trying to reach out to the Kurds and making good efforts. So I think just more talks and more cooperation. I think the longer the budget deal stays, the better the relationship will be between the two.
Are there any key measures that the Baghdad government can take in the short term to help prop up the economy?
I'm not sure they can do anything really short term. Like I said, they're really going month by month off of their oil revenues. The insurgency has really hurt foreign investment and interest in the country. And parts of the country are actually really safe. Kurdistan, southern Iraq are really untouched by the insurgency. But because of the news, and I'm sure the insurance rates companies have to do, they're not really interested in going there right now. So I'm not sure there's anything they can do until they make better progress on the battlefield. I'm not sure what they can do to really fix the economic situation.
Now we're going to shift gears and just go long term. Which would you say are the sectors that will play the biggest role in the rebuilding efforts?
It's obviously the oil. I mean, that's where they make all the money. The budget sits right now for over $50 a barrel for Iraqi crude, and they're only selling it in the $40 range right now. So they really need a increase in their oil sales and their exports to try to earn as much money as they can to try to rebuild the country, fight the insurgency, and take care of any other issues that they have. So until oil prices go up, they're really just going to be struggling right now.